business cycles. Yeah. The business cycles.
We are back again. We have learned that our videos that have cats in them or discuss Game of Thrones outperform the ones that do not. So get ready for
I think
some
we have to
camera
pivot.
appearances.
I think we should maybe move away from Business Psychos and like a Cats Game of Thrones mashup podcast that's not been covered yet.
Listen, it's the only thing I talk about is cats, and Business Psychos actually just like keeps me diversified. So if all we talked about was cats,
and Game of Thrones, just to call out.
And Game of Thrones, not sponsored,
but
open to it.
Yeah.
So
get in touch.
Get in touch. That's Business Psychos podcast
George,
at Gmail.
Hit me up.
Hit me up. So Mary, last week we did a show about ways men can improve their professional effectiveness. They become better colleagues and bosses, which benefits everyone. The same is true for women. When we grow and succeed and become better colleagues and leaders, everyone working for us benefits. So thinking about collective success in this way can help all of us be more supportive and compassionate allies. We all have a shared destiny together. So seeking understanding has to be the path forward. So I want to share some statistics here. And I know some people might find this dull, but bear with me because it's important for our discussion. So in 1960, in the US, about 1/3 of women over 16 were working. The trend of women entering the workforce began after World War II and would gather more momentum with the women's movement in the 1960s. So that movement would facilitate greater opportunities and the diversification of women-held roles beyond clerical, teaching, nursing. So by 2020, more than half of women over 16 worked, and women comprised about 47% of the workforce. This is a big jump from the 60s, but it still reflects a notable gender imbalance here in the US. And this is not addressing the pay gap, seniority level gap, impact on minority status, and even the female founder investment disparities. But also to consider is in Europe, employment rates for women are 12% higher than here in the US, with progressive countries like Germany boasting 21% higher rates. In Sweden, 80% of women ages 20 to 64 work, which is 26% higher than here in the US. Europe has been so effective because of supporting policies and cultural norms which value work-life balance, gender equality, national healthcare schemes, and labor protection. So how does all of this relate to women's effectiveness at work? Well, to start, US corporate culture often values assertiveness and competitiveness. Women in leadership may adopt these traits to succeed in traditionally male-dominated environments, especially given the challenge for women to even break into senior roles. This often leads to the double bind, where women are criticized for being too aggressive or not aggressive enough. By contrast, in Europe, especially the Scandinavian countries, the culture strongly values work-life balance and egalitarian principles. Our European female executive counterparts enjoy family-friendly policies such as parental leave, childcare services, healthcare, and respect for setting work boundaries. I worked for a Swedish company briefly, and I can attest to that, and the positive impact that it has on your lifestyle. And because the US has poorer policies and cultural norms which almost celebrate martyring oneself to one's job, women typically face more pressure to balance professional and personal responsibilities without institutional support. So throw in that women carry heavier loads of non-compensated work like childcare, and the challenge becomes even greater. Some European countries like Norway and Germany have implemented gender quotas for corporate boards, which has led to higher representation of women in leadership roles and has resulted in greater impact on creating healthy corporate cultures.
Wow, those statistics, Katie, crazy. I don't think I've ever thought about the conversation about women's challenges in just those terms. I mean, we all talk about the US doesn't have this, and we know our European counterparts don't, but the way you've teed it up so beautifully, it really calls out all the different complexities at play. And in terms of this conversation today, certainly I think I can speak for both of us. The last thing we are looking to do is to vilify women, especially in light of the societal and institutional models, which are absolutely not designed to support our success. So we keep these historical challenges, which remain to this day, in mind because they put women in extremely challenging positions relative to their male counterparts. So today we're talking about supporting our fellow queens and helping them achieve success on their terms. So let's start the conversation.
I did work for a Swedish company, and they had a fantastic work-life balance, like to the point that it was like it was cut at like 5 o'clock. These companies have to compete in a world where those aren't the standards for other people, and you know what? They still succeed.
Yep.
Which is so counterintuitive. The volume is lower, but the quality is higher, and people are more engaged and more
sure.
It's the
They've
cultures.
done productivity research on this. When I was at Boston Consulting Group, I forget the name of the partner, but he wrote a book called Sleeping with Your Smartphone. And they actually did the research on their own project teams. And they started to ring fence and protect some consulting teams that were not available after 5 or 6 o'clock or whatever, had reasonable balances, and found that there was really no substantial difference in profitability or client penetration based on that. But it did cover up for poor management of a project, right? Like if things went well, you could do that. But if you were mismanaging the project or mismanaging the client's expectations, then you needed the team to work really late to kind of cover your own mismanagement. So it kind of, right, if it has like all those things have to be equal for it to work. And it's not like, okay, why do we have to work the weekend? Because like if everyone planned this, unless it's a true emergency, you're in an industry that this is a true emergency. Like, don't you have aren't you running off a plan? Why is this a surprise that you needed this board deck done? This didn't didn't sneak up on you. And yet you'll always see people, I have to work the weekend because I have a board deck. And it's always like, well, wait, no,
the board
you knew this last year.
Scheduled all year. Yeah.
It's just like, who messed up?
Wait.
I remember working for a chief person who, I remember it was Friday. There was like 10 of us on this call trying to get this deck done. And everyone's looking at the clock. It's like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. And then at the end, when you couldn't get it right, he's like, well, I guess some of us are going to be working this weekend. And it was just like a power control incompetence thing. But anyway.
Well, and I think there's so many dimensions, as you're pointing to, with it. And one of them is sustainability. I mean, that's the part where it's like, okay, well, you're looking at a particular slice in time, but in terms of like the longevity for people like who are really high performing, high contribution people, to work in that way where it just absorbs all of their life, that one of the things that happens is like, they burn out, and preceding that is resentment, which can also impact the quality of their work. And once people are resentful, it's over. Like, there's no bringing it back. When somebody starts to clock what they've given up, it's hard to unsee that. And I think that has a lot to do with being a human being. But also, I think one of the things about like how a P&L sheet is viewed in terms of the cost of turnover and the loss, it's one of those things that it's just kind of conveniently like not, I think, architected in a way to value retention by understanding the actual cost of actually hiring and onboarding people and getting them to productivity. So even like this idea of productivity, it's like it's viewed, I think, in like with so little dimension.
Of course, yeah.
And so well, I mean, just back to the point is like working for European companies where they're just their viewpoint in terms of their strategy for what they're developing is not so much to like boost something up and then take it public and then it's sort of like sell it off. It's like there's just more of a sense of creating like a sustainable company and lifestyle that supports people and their families and has more of sort of like cultural impact. So
hey, fellow psychos, if you enjoyed the show, please click like, subscribe, and share it with other psychos you know. We'd also love to hear from you, so please hit us up on our socials. We're at Business Psychos Pod on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook.